When you're watching Die Hard 2, baby, this movie is the direct sequel to the first Die Hard. And you know what? Guess what happens in this movie? The same, well, almost the same thing happens in this movie as it did in the first movie. It takes place on Christmas weekend, takes place on, I think Christmas Eve. December 24th, and they bring back a lot of recurring characters, you know what I mean? They bring Bruce Willis back, they bring back his wife, they bring back a whole, they bring back the OG crew. The villains are different. They also bring an array of new characters as well, but the key difference is this is not just all happening in one building, it's also happening this one's happening in an airport. And this was before, you know what I mean, the big this was all before 9/11. I don't know why I tried to gloss. I didn't want to say it, but you know what I mean, this was before it. So it's kind of like a, one of those early pieces of like action that happens in an airport. I can't really think of another movie that like fought at an airport, like a big like thing like that. There's obviously been fights on planes, that's been done, and those were done well. They did it in Non-Stop with Liam Neeson. I can't think of another movie. They did it in The Dark Knight Rises with Bane and stuff. So it's obviously been done in planes, just not like specifically an airport. You know what I mean? So anyways, it's Christmas Eve. Bruce Willis is at the airport to pick up his wife. He moved to LA, you know what I mean? He was a New York City cop, moved to LA so he could be with his wife, became an LA cop. And this time they're in Washington, D.C. So it's the nation's capital. And he's over there. And he's kind of like, it starts off with him getting a ticket or like getting his car towed, but it's not even his car, it's his in-laws car. And now he kind of has to like get a taxi to take him and his wife home. His wife is up in the plane, and basically everything that you don't want on a plane is on the plane. Like there's smoking, there's drinking, there's dude, this lady, oh my gosh, I should hold it, I should save it. But anyways, Bruce Willis is there, he's trying to pick up his wife for Christmas Eve. They're in Washington, D.C., and essentially Bruce Willis is just minding his business, you know what I mean, doing what he does. And then at the same time, on Christmas Eve, mind you, they are bringing like the most dangerous drug kingpin. I don't know who he is, to be honest. He's some sort of criminal. They're bringing a criminal, and he's a Spain criminal. I don't know. I know his name is Esperanza, but they're bringing him over on a plane, and then the bad guys are just trying to get him and then run away. That's their plan. So the bad guys are just typical soldiers who are like perfectly trained and they're equipped and they can do stuff. I saw, if you've ever watched Daredevil, they have Ben, the guy who plays Ben in the first season. He's in this movie. They have John Leguizamo in the movie. I was kind of surprised. I was like, whoa, that's them. But anyways, essentially what happens is we get introduced to the villains and we see basically the villain naked. Like we don't see, you know what I mean? We don't see his piece, but we do see him like, he's kind of like training naked. And I was just like, what is this? I was like, what is this shot? It was like just to show his physique, how strong he is. And also that like, he's a killer. So he was like doing poses in front of like the mirror and whatnot. And I was just looking at this. I was like, they're spending too much time on him like this. I was like, I don't really care about this, but this was like a 90s movie. So it's just like, You gotta take it for what it was at the time. So anyways, he's standing there, he's flexing, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like our introduction to them. And they're bad. they're just bad guys. Just to be clear, all right? But anyways, Bruce Willis gets a ticket and he's just like, oh, come on, it's Christmas Eve. And the cop's just like, screw you. Then, talk to Santa Claus or whatever, you know what I mean? And then Bruce Willis starts just wandering around the airport waiting. He's like, I gotta just wait for my wife now. I guess I'm just gonna just walk around, do nothing. And then he starts noticing all of the bad guys showing up at the airport, waiting for the plane of Esperanza to land and then basically take him. And so he's just kind of like suspicious about them. And then he takes notice and he he tries to warn the cops. He's like, hey guys, I just saw, and then the cop turns around and it's the cop that gave him the ticket, the one that he was arguing with. And they were like, just what, huh? And they were like, shut up, you idiot. And then Bruce Willis is like, nothing, I didn't see nothing. And then he walks away, and then he basically just goes on his own after the bad guys. And then the airport, I really hope that that's not how airports look. Like, obviously, I hope it was just like for show, you know what I mean? Like they built the set to resemble an airport luggage sorting system, and that's not actually how they're sorted, you know what I mean? Or maybe times have changed, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, what I'm trying to get at here is Bruce Willis shows up, he sees the bad guys, and he's like, hey, what are you doing over there? And they're just like, we have to kill him. So they start shooting each other. And Bruce Willis starts shooting at them. And it's a back and forth. And then Bruce Willis gets one of the criminals. And, like, I guess the luggage thing, like one of the belts, it, like, pushes down on somebody. And Bruce Willis, like, lets it push or crush one of the bad guys. And it kills him. And he's just like, all right, I did it. You know what I mean? And then the other one gets away. He basically runs away. And Bruce Willis is like, damn it. You know what I mean? So now the area is a crime scene, but the police aren't the only ones there, okay? The news and reporters are both, the news and reporters are there, and they're just trying to get like an inside scoop. They're trying to get like a big story on Esperanza. They're like, is there anything you can tell us about Esperanza's, arrival here at the airport? We know he's coming. Can you comment? Is there anything you want to say on the record? You know what I mean? And then one of the female reporters goes up to Bruce Willis and is like, I remember you. You were at LA at the Nakatomi building or whatever. You know what I mean? They were just like, hey, we know you. We like you, talk to me. Give me any kind of insight. Why are you here? What's going on? So Bruce Willis kills the guy, and then it's a crime scene, and there's reporters all around. They're like, what's going on? What's the story? What's the gossip? What's the word? Huh, Bruce Willis? And Bruce Willis is like, get away from me. Get out of my face. Leave me alone. And the reporter says like, hey, I already got that same attitude from the other guy, from the other general or whoever. And that's when Bruce Willis, John McClane, starts going like, that's who he is. I remember his face. That's why I was so suspicious of him. I got it now. So then, just to speed things along, Bruce Willis is kind of like going up to the police chief. He's kind of like the captain or whoever's in charge of the security, who is ever in charge of the police at the airport. He goes up to him and he's like, hey, something bad's about to go down. I got a bad feeling about it. And then they just make the captain insufferable. They really make him unlikable. He's just kind of like, oh yeah? Well, how about I just close down the whole airport just because you have a funny feeling, huh? It was a one-time thing. You got rid of the bad guy. It is what it is. He's kind of just playing like the I'm the boss, so you just do whatever I say, and I know what I'm doing. I'm the big kahuna. I know what's going on here, and you can't tell me anything, and I'll throw you out. So they kind of like have a bicker back and forth, and nobody listens to Bruce Willis. So then Bruce Willis is like, all right, whatever. I'm going to go do my own thing. And that leads to him getting real results. But then, just when things seem to be just regular, everything goes just downhill. and the bad guys cut off all communication to the planes, so they can't talk to them. They can't like tell them like, all right, you need to descend here, or we're gonna light up the runway for you. Like, they don't have any of that. There's no communication, and they've also cut off the lights. So the bad guys are now in charge of everything. And they're sort of all at their mercy, and they're like, what's going on? And Bruce Willis is like, I told you they were going to do something like this. If you'd gone off your fat ass and done what I told you to do, we wouldn't be in this situation. And the bad guy and the cop is just like, you close your mouth, McClane. You don't know what you're talking about. No, 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 no. And then the bad guy's like communicating to them on a walkie-talkie through their speaker system. And he's like, this is what's going to happen. You guys aren't going to do anything, and you're going to wait for Esperanza to come here, and then we're going to get him, essentially, is what they say. And then, in between, John McClane has to fight some bad guys. He has to kill some people. He has to save the day once again. And he's just kind of like, how does the same thing happen again to the same person 2 times in a row? And he's just kind of like, darn, this sucks. So anyways, they tried to like figure out a way to communicate with the airplanes, but it doesn't work. And they try to essentially save a plane that's low on fuel and needs to land. And then the bad guys, or the general, or whoever, the colonel, whatever you want to call him, he changes the system, or like kind of like the landing, the altitude level, so that way the plane thinks that they're going to a normal level, but they're actually not. And it's also snowing. It's also like kind of foggy and a blizzard outside, so they have to rely on communication in order to land. And the bad guys are just like, we told you not to do anything. You tried to do something, and these are the consequences. And so a plane of like 230 people, 2 pilots, the stewardesses, and people all from London are given false information by the bad guys, and they land too close to the ground, and they crash, and the plane explodes, killing all of them. But Bruce Willis tries to go out there to signal them with fire. He's like, has 2 torches in his hands, and he's like, stop, pull up. But it's too late. They don't make it. And he's just like, damn it. There's a big dramatic moment where he's like, darn, why? You know what I mean? Just kind of like that, one of those moments, you know what I mean? So anyways, now it gets personal. Now it gets like, man, we've already messed up. And the next plane that lands is going to be his wife's. So now he's kind of like, darn, I'm stuck. You know what I mean? I have to save my wife next. So then the bad guys, so then the police, they call in support. They call in military support from the government. And they're just basically like, this is the platoon that's going to save us. These are the people that are going to help us out here. And Bruce Willis is like, I don't know, dude. They might not be able to handle this. And then the guys are like, we can handle this, John McClane. So one thing leads to another. Everything starts unfolding and unraveling. And so to speak, one thing leads to another. And the plane that's carrying Esperanza, the main bad guy, the one that they want to free, essentially, from his captivity, he kills the pilots and lands the plane himself. Now, he probably has piloting experience, but it was just so insane. I was like, that's crazy. And he shut out the front window. So, that would mess anybody up. But anyways, essentially what happens is Bruce Willis is now trying to figure out how to stop the bad guys. And the military is trying to also stop the bad guys. So it's a temporary truce. They're temporarily working together. And the cop and the main police captain is still against Bruce Willis. They're still like butting heads, so to speak. And so eventually Bruce Willis gets walkie-talkie access to the bad guys. I may be messing up some of the timeline here, but overall, he finds a way to talk to the bad guys, and he's just kind of like, those people didn't have to die. I'm stuck in this now because my wife's coming down on the plane or whatever. And the bad guy is just kind of like, oh, shut up. Who are you? Nobody cares. And then the police captain's like, McClane, shut up. We don't want you talking anymore. And then that guy's boss kind of turns it off, and now they know John McClane is involved. Blah, 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 blah. Too much explaining going on. Okay. Next, they find out where the bad guys are. They find the church that they're kind of living in and working at, so to speak. So because of that, now John McClane is racing over there to them, and he gets into a fight. And this kind of reminds me of the first one where he jumps on this guy's back and they kind of just wrestle and tumble. And in this movie, he does the exact same thing, and they struggle and they wrestle and they go back and forth. And then John McClane pulls an icicle out and stabs the guy in the eye before he stabs him. And I was just like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? I was like, this is so crazy. This is so 90s. It's just like, it's so unrealistic. But anyways, I mean, the stabbing him part is not unrealistic. It's just that like they struggled, and then at the last second he grabs the icicle and, you know, whatever. So then the soldiers show up with John McClane, and they take the church, and then the bad guys run away on not jet skis, what's it called? Snowmobiles, on the snowmobiles, so they can ride on the snow a lot easier. And John McClane is like fighting them. He takes over one of their snowmobiles and chases after them. And then he figures out that the soldiers aren't really on their side. The soldiers are also a part of the bad guys. He's like, they're not real. They're using blanks to shoot at the bad guys. Look at this. They're all a part of the same team. They didn't catch anybody, and nobody's going away. All we've done is play into their hand. And so him and the police captain are arguing back and forth, and then John McClane shoots at him, but he shoots at him with the blanks. And they kind of just realize they're like, oh, snap, he's the bad guy. They are the bad guy. And John McClane, I'm sorry, dude. It's just, he shoots an automatic weapon at the police captain. All the other cops, like, hear this, see him do it, and then they pull out their piece and they don't shoot. That was the most unrealistic thing to ever happen in this movie. Like, they for sure would have killed Bruce Willis. Like, without question, though. But, you know, they don't. And they listen to Bruce Willis finally, and essentially they go after the bad guys. Bruce Willis shows up to the plane where... Oh, okay. Bruce Willis shows up to the plane where Esperanza lands, right? And then he catches Esperanza, shoots him in the arm, and they kind of tussle. Oh, dude, so much crazy stuff happens in this movie, and it's so unrealistic. So, remember how I said Esperanza shot the two pilots and landed the plane himself? Well, Bruce Willis caught up to him. He shoots him in the arm, and then he kind of like is inside the place. Now, they shoot up the plane. The bad guys shoot up the plane, and then they throw grenades in there. They throw grenades right in front of Bruce Willis's face. Now, grenades, they take like only a few seconds to explode. So they throw in like 6 grenades, but Bruce Willis has time to sit down in the pilot's chair and then eject out of the seat just before the bombs explode. And then he's kind of like up in the air, but then firefighter and police officers are coming to the plane or whatever. So it's just kind of like, ugh. I was just kind of like, that's unbelievable. There's no way that would happen. I was like, that was so crazy. But anyways, then Bruce Willis catches up to them on their getaway plane, and he's like, does something to the flap to keep them from going up. He like shoves a coat on there, and then the bad guys have to fight him in order to. They have to fight them in order to get it loose. So then Bruce Willis has the brilliant idea to open up the fuel tank. So he's like about to fall off the plane. They're fighting, and Bruce Willis is getting his ass kicked. And he opens up their fuel tank, and they're about to ascend. They're about to take off. And Bruce Willis lights a lighter, and then he throws it into the snow. And that kind of like traces the gasoline all the way back to the plane. And then they explode. And the whole plane explodes, killing all of the bad guys. I was like, damn, they don't even try to like arrest anybody. They just straight up murder them. And that was like the victory. Bruce Willis was like, yes, I did it. And then the other planes in the sky, like Bruce Willis's wife's plane that can't like, none of the runway lights are on, so they can't see. They're like, I see the fire. Now we can land. And then they land, and it's like, I blew them up, and the fire saved everybody's life. So it's just kind of like a win-win scenario. And then he runs over to his wife and he's like, Holly! And then it's like kind of like a Rocky Adrian moment. And he's just like, I got you. And then they hug it out. And then the police captain's kind of like, did you get a ticket in front of my airport? And he's like, yeah. And then he rips up the ticket and is like, but wait, where's my car? I was like, what happened? So this movie was... I mean, I guess you could say they did it bigger and better, but it was just like, it was so crazy. It's so wild to think that like that movie was like the top tier action. You know what I mean? So even like action movies that are like terrible today, their choreography, their stunts, and all of that extra stuff, like, is way above this one. You know what I mean? This one's cheesy, and it's kind of like one man versus an army type deal, and it's just like, it takes me out of it. And I also forgot to mention Carl Winslow's in the movie. Good guy, you know? I like their friendship. I'm glad they put him in the movie. I thought that was cool. And then, I don't know, overall, as a movie, I thought... I had a good time watching it. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was funny. You know, the biggest problem with this movie is just that, like, they say so many weird one-liners. He says yippee-ki-yay again. I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, I thought we were done with that. I guess it's kind of like his trademark thing. And then they do, dude, I can't stress this enough. He was in the plane. They were throwing grenades in there, okay? Then they throw in like 8 grenades, okay? He literally has the time to go, huh? He looks at it, runs to the pilot's seat, okay? Puts on the seatbelt, puts on everything, pulls the ejector seat, and then at the same time, the plane explodes and he just barely makes it out. It's like, whoa! And then he's just kind of like right there in the air. And the bad guys, you know, obviously, they want to get away before like the police or the firefighters or whoever get there, right? So instead of shooting at him in his seat, he can't move, he can't do anything. If they shoot at him, he'll basically be defenseless. They could kill him right then and there. But they don't. They just drive away and they let him get away, and then it's a final stretch to catch them before they leave. So I think overall, Die Hard is just a fun movie. It's just one of those ridiculous action movies, and I do like it. I do kind of like these movies. I don't I don't know why, but there's just something that the charisma of Bruce Willis, I guess carries most of this movie. It's just really funny to see him do all of these crazy stunts, and you know, it feels really old school. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to describe it, but it's really funny. It's really funny to me. Let me think. What else is there? In terms of the first Die Hard, I mean, they blow up a plane in this one. There are more bad guys, or like it feels like there's more of a reason behind the bad guys. Like I feel like, oh, we're busting out our fearless leader from prison. I feel like that's more of like okay, that's why they're doing this. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a lot better than just trying to get some shares or some money from a vault. I definitely think that the conflict was a lot better. It was a lot more direct. Bruce Willis wasn't just communicating via a walkie-talkie to the cops and to the FBI or whoever. You know what I mean? He was talking directly to the police captain. He was letting him know what's up to his face, and they were arguing back and forth. I enjoyed the banter. Oh, also, do you know the reporter who like showed up at their house and recorded their children? He's also in the movie, and he's in the plane with Bruce Willis's wife, and they're kind of like, I mean, they have like they don't like each other, or more so, the reporter doesn't like Bruce Willis's wife because she punched him in the face on national TV and messed him up, and he filed a restraining order. Long story short, he again tries to make, you know what I mean? He again tries to become famous or like be like a top tier reporter by listening in on the airplane cockpit, telling the world that, and creating mass panic at the airport about like there are terrorists at the airport, they're taking over the planes, they can't land, they're gonna kill people, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. Like, I agree that the people have a right to know, but not from this guy. You know what I mean? This guy sucks. And again, oh, okay, so let me get back to it. So this relates to the old lady. So there's an old lady on the flight, and she pulls out a taser, and she's showing Bruce Willis's wife. She's like, now with this thing, nobody messes with me. I used to carry around a mace, sweetheart, and now I carry around this taser, and now nobody messes with me. And then the reporter is like calling, you know, the TV station live. He's basically like, yeah, man, you know, I'm so glad I could break this story to you. If there's one thing I want people to know about me, and then she like tases him, and like he passes out, and she's just like, I hate you. And then she like kind of walks away. And there was that other female reporter that was getting Bruce Willis's face. She was like, can you tell us anything about this? The word is that you killed the man. And he's just kind of like, leave me alone. He kind of gives her the scoop, or kind of gives her the story, because he needs to borrow their helicopter. You know how like the news will have like those live helicopters that go up into the sky? Well, he'll kind of be, he was on the helicopter, and that's how he caught up to the plane before it descended at the end. And I remember there 2 times in the movie, the girls were hitting on Bruce Willis. There was this girl who was working at the airport, who he was making a fax with, talking to Carl Winslow, and she was kind of like, hey, you know, I get off in an hour. Do you want to maybe get a drink? And he's like, haha, yeah, I'm married though. And he walks away. And then the reporter, she's like, oh my gosh, if you give me this story, I'll have your baby. And he's just like, I'm married, and that's not the kind of ride I need. You know what I mean? He's talking about the helicopter. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is so corny and so cheesy, and it just like, it didn't work for me. I was just like, what is with these women? I was just like, I get it. They're trying to make Bruce Willis like this all attractive and powerful man that like the ladies want him, but he's faithful. You know what I mean? So, in conclusion, when you're watching Die Hard 2, just know it's essentially the same exact premise done again in an airport and more things blow up, okay? An airplane blows up, another airplane blows up, a lot more fights, a lot of arguing, and just some last minute suspense, you know what I mean? But other than that, cool movie. I like this movie. I thought it was kind of, a little wild, but I thought it was fun nonetheless. So, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.